Hey, and welcome to another Student Branding TV. I am Kade Dworkin.
And I'm Amber Ray Lamke.
So, Amber, obviously you're in a different place or something, or you're just somewhere else. What's the deal? Nice brick background behind you, though.
Yeah, as you can tell, I'm not my usual New York. Well, it's funny because the picture that's usually behind me is a painting of two girls in New York. But today I'm actually in New York on vacay visiting my friend. So I had to set up shop. And I thought this brick wall, I don't know, it's kind of pretty.
That's awesome. I mean, that sounds like a perfect kind of thing for you. I mean, get out of town and go from one kind of big town in San Francisco to another kind of big town, or quite possibly the biggest town the United States has to offer in New York. So hopefully you're having a blast out there. But let's get into this week's topic, which Shannon Reed actually put up a post recently on studentbranding.com about resumes. So I wanted to kind of expand on that because with so many people being out of work right now, and we've got the December graduates getting ready to finish up here in just a few weeks' time, and with as many people out of work as there currently are, it gets really hard when you're fresh out of school to get your resume, get people to pay attention to your resume. So, even if you're a May graduate, it may be time to start honing those skills and getting that resume completely sharp so that when it comes, March, April time, that you're at full speed when you go into those great job interviews that you will be getting. So, I mean, Amber, what's your immediate thought regarding resumes and all that fun stuff?
I think the biggest thing is you need to nail what your points of differentiation are. And what I mean by that is with resumes, every single word on that resume counts and needs to give impact, and it needs to speak directly to you and the difference that you made. Like any generic job description, anything that someone in that role could have done, totally forget that. It needs to really speak to the difference that you made, the impact that you brought, and it needs to be a combination of both like the qualitative as well as, give some metrics or give some analytics, quantitative numbers for the difference in the impact that you made. That's what I think is important.
Absolutely agree with you on that, and it's one of those things where you've got to be able to point to the results that you've previously made. Now, a lot of people coming out of school can't immediately do that because they were more focused on their schoolwork, or their job experience isn't immediately relatable to the jobs they want to get into. One of the big secrets that I've had, and I've had a lot of success with, is the fact that I break the one-page rule all the time. And that's primarily because I do things differently to start with, right? I mean, I don't list my address ever on my resume, right? Why sit there, and especially if you're applying for jobs that are out of the town that you're living in, why disqualify yourself because you put you put your address on there, and then they got to think about relocation packages, and as a recruiter, you're just making their life a heck of a lot harder from the start. The other big thing that I do is my name is actually smaller than the first thing on my resume, which shockingly enough is a quote from a very well-known individual inside the industry that I'm working in. And the reason for that is because my name, I'm not Brad Pitt. You're not going to know me. Like, you're going to want to know stuff about me. And if I can get you to be interested in what I've done and the things that I've accomplished, then I've got, the ability for you to ask me what my name is. I'm interested, you're intrigued, you want more information. So you're going to see the stuff that's slightly smaller, but it's still at the top of the page where they are accustomed to seeing it. So, Amber, I mean, I break that big one-page rule. What's your thought on that?
Yeah, mine's actually front back. I
Okay.
took more of a because I was more on like the agency. I think it really depends on what job and what industry you're applying within. For me,
Sure.
I was able to like be creative, and I mean, you see my front page, and it's sort of more of I don't know, it gives an intro to some of the stuff I've done, and then it has a section called My First, which lists out a bunch of things that are really important to me and really represent me as a person,
Sure.
and like the age or that I first experienced that. And then it also lists out some brands that I've nurtured and how to get me on the social web. And then if you flip it over, it has my experience. So
Okay.
I'm all about being unique and being different. But again, like if you're applying for a really conservative finance company, they're going to probably want to see, a one page, very formal, very, straightforward resume. So it's really situational and dependent on the job you're applying for.
Yeah, I mean, know your audience, right? Yeah, that's the biggest part about this, right? The more you can research about the companies that you're working or potentially going to be working with, and you kind of get a feel for, what they're expecting in that process, right? I mean, I know that I can be the social media guy at any one of the companies that I walk into just because of the breadth of my experience behind me. I know that I can, point to the 2 patent applications that I've been very fortunate to have been involved in. So, I can do that kind of stuff, and that's why I can get away with it. Now, Amber, what's your thoughts on like the personal stuff? Do you ever put, the kind of random one-off things that, you do in your free time in order to give people the feel for who you are away from work?
Yeah, I think it's important to, again, it depends on who your audience is and where you're applying, but I think it's, important to think about, what it is that makes you unique and then being able to visually convey that, and also in terms of what you write in a way that's kind of creative and speaks to you. So whether that's, instead of, everyone's going to put interests in whatever their interests are, but if you can sort of, like for me, I took that my first section, and it essentially covers all of my interests, but in a more unique manner, in a way that catches people's attention. So if you can think of how you can sort of parlay what it is that makes you unique and what you're interested in a cool way, I think you'll have some better results.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the big things that I've found to be shockingly useful, and it gives people something to talk to me about and break the ice with me about, right? I was interviewing, my last job search, which ended about 3 or 4 months ago, with a very large internationally known consumer products brand. And the VP who I was interviewing with sat there and he flipped the page. I could hear him do it over the phone, looked at the second page and said, "Oh, I never need to ask you about continuous learning," because he saw the fact that, I listed the fact that I am subscribed to over 400 blogs. I've read 150 books over the course of the last 3 years in this space. And so he just immediately knew that all those questions about, did I know what was going on? Did I know these certain key terms? That those are just a given. And at the job that I'm currently at, the interviewer actually is a huge soccer fan. And I included one line on that final, I had just literally 2 lines at the very end, and I just needed to make the page look full just to make me happy. And put, soccer fan, supporter of the U.S. men's national team and Aston Villa. And all of a sudden, that became a huge discussion, for the first probably 10 minutes of my interview was about soccer, something that made me comfortable, it made the interviewer comfortable, and as a result, we were able to talk about the social media stuff and the things that actually were required of the job, and we had this rapport from day 0, and it made life easier for everyone once we got to that point. So, Amber, any last thoughts about what would make an absolutely stellar resume, or any references or tools that you have out there?
There's a book by Brad Karsh. It's called, I just lost it. What is it? The Confessions of a Recruiting Director. And he worked at Leo Burnett for a long time and as like the HR director. And the book just really helps you learn how to make a memorable cover letter, which it was like less than 10 sentences essentially, just being, short and sweet, and also gives some really great tips for entry-level resumes. So encourage you guys to check that out.
I'm right there with you. Those, I mean, I haven't read that book, but now I'm interested, and I like you, and I like the stuff, and you seem to have a very good beat on these things, so I was I gotta go get that. I've referenced this book previously in I think it was the 2nd or 3rd episode of Student Branding TV. Brag by Peggy Klaus is one of those books that I absolutely am passionate about, because it's all about figuring out who you are, what your story is, what makes you different, like Amber's been talking about, and how to package it.
I want this now.
Yeah, it's a great book. It's a fantastic read, and it actually has a set of exercises that really help you tell your story in a very succinct way. And whether or not that's in person, over a cover letter, or even in your resume, you've got to be able to do that in a very short time. So that's kind of where we're at, and huge ups to Shannon Reed over at studentbranding.com for starting our discussion regarding resumes tonight. Amber, thanks for your time. Enjoy New York, and travel back home safe to San Francisco.
Thank you. Thanks much. Bye, everyone. See you guys next week.
See you guys.